Halcyon 3 had always been a symbol of human hope. Green forests under twin suns, crystal clear oceans, cities built with care and technology, and people who believed in building a better tomorrow. It was the jewel of the colonies, a place where war was forgotten and peace had finally taken root. But then, one day, the silence came. It started with a missed supply report, followed by static-laced comms, then nothing at all. Earth's orbital relay stations tried again and again to reach them. No reply. At first they blamed equipment failure. A satellite might have been damaged, a power outage maybe. But deep down, the Earth Defense Council knew something was wrong. Very wrong. Captain Elira Vance, a sharp and calm officer with a reputation for keeping her head when others panicked, was assigned to lead the scout ship Strider. Her orders were simple. Go to Halcyon 3, make contact, and report findings. But nothing ever turned out simple in deep space. The moment the Strider dropped out of faster-than-light travel and entered orbit, the crew fell into stunned silence. The planet below was unrecognizable. What had once been glowing cities were now black scars of ash. Smoke drifted into space. Oceans boiled in strange spots, and forests had been burned down to empty husks. Elira stared at the devastation, her fingers tightening on the command console. What did this?" whispered her navigator, a young ensign named Price. Elira didn't answer. She didn't have an answer. They sent out drones to scan the surface. No life signs, not even animal movement, just ruins, silent and hollow. In the capital, Nova Meridian, the command tower had collapsed. Roads twisted. Strange crystal formations pierced the landscape, shimmering faintly under the sun. The strangest part, no signs of a battle, no orbital strikes, no weapon impacts. Just destruction, like the world had been picked apart, melted, then frozen in place. "I want a salvage team down there," Elira ordered. "Gear up. I want eyes on the ground." The team descended in a drop shuttle, scanning every inch as they landed near the ruins of the central comms array. Everything was dead. Machines stripped. Buildings hollowed. They found no bodies. Not a single one. It was as if the people of Halcyon 3 had simply vanished. The comms tower was broken in half, but deep inside the wreckage, they found something. A damaged black box. The team brought it back aboard the Strider. Tech Officer Rin worked tirelessly to clean the data. Hours passed. Then a file loaded, an audio recording. Elira listened, her face unreadable. The voice was panicked, whispering between bursts of static. They came from the dark shadows between the stars. Not ships, not machines. They tore through us. Couldn't fight. Couldn't even run. "If you hear this, tell Earth we never stood a..." The message ended in a sharp crack of static. Everyone on the bridge stood frozen. Even the AI systems ran silent diagnostics, confused by what they were hearing. Elira looked out the viewing window toward the burned planet. Something had come here, something fast, silent, brutal, and now it was gone, leaving only ruins behind. She tapped into Earth's priority channel and spoke 3 words. "Halcyon 3 has fallen." There was no time for doubt, no time to wait. Earth needed to prepare. Because whatever did this, it wasn't finished. The news of Halcyon 3's fall spread across Earth like a storm with no warning, urgent, terrifying, and impossible to ignore. When Captain Elira Vance's message reached the Earth Defense Council, the room of leaders fell into a deep, uneasy silence. These were not ordinary politicians. They were seasoned strategists, former soldiers, scientists, and tacticians. They had seen wars, faced alien threats, and built peace across the stars. But this was different. Halcyon 3 had been one of their most secure colonies. For it to vanish without warning, without survivors, and with no clear enemy, meant the threat was beyond anything they had prepared for. They didn't argue. They didn't hesitate. In a unanimous vote, Earth initiated Protocol Red Horizon, the full mobilization of the Sol Defense Armada. It had not been activated in over 100 years, not since the early expansion wars. But now, it was Earth's only answer. Deep inside the solar shipyards, giant construction rings began spinning with renewed speed. On Mars, workers in red dust suits guided molten metal into starship molds. The moon's black forges came alive, producing plasma cores, gravity engines, and armor plating. Jupiter's orbit, once a peaceful science station zone, turned into a growing fleet bay. All across the system, humans built warships with purpose. Not just a fleet, an armada. 700,000 ships were ordered. Destroyers, cruisers, dreadnoughts, stealth corvettes, drone swarms, and mobile command fortresses. AI-assisted design sped up construction. Automation lines worked without sleep. Humans worked beside machines, driven by fear and fury. Every ship bore the name of a lost colony, a historical battle, or a word of vengeance. Children watched the skies and saw new stars forming, stars made of steel and fire. Fleet Admiral Riker, a man known for his iron discipline and quiet rage, was put in charge of the entire operation. He walked the docking bays daily, inspecting hulls, reviewing weapon specs, and speaking to the crews. "This is not a war of expansion," he told them. "This is survival. One colony fell. We will not lose another." Meanwhile, data analysts combed through the Halcyon 3 black box over and over. They enhanced the audio. They mapped the strange crystal structures. One researcher found fragments of alien matter on the scout team's drone. It didn't match any known technology, organic, but also sharp and unnatural. The scientists gave it a name, silicate veil. No one knew if it was by their name or just what they were, but it was enough. Earth now had a target, even if it was vague, and that target would be hunted. As the first waves of ships were completed, the fleet began test jumps to nearby colonies to show strength and readiness. Then, just days after, the 100th dreadnought left orbit. A message came from the mining colony of New Thessia, far beyond Mars, near the edge of human space. The message was broken and brief. "Contact, hostile, 3 ships, size unknown, not responding. Shields failing, requesting." Then silence. No follow-up. No video. Just a still image. A shadow in space, shaped like a jagged crescent, hanging above the colony like a silent storm. Within minutes, Fleet Command ordered a response group to launch. 10,000 ships, 2 carriers, 1 planetary shield generator. They would not let another Halcyon 3 happen. Earth responded to the colony's final message with only 3 words, short, powerful, and clear. "Help is coming." Across the stars, humanity began to move. This time, it would not wait for the enemy to strike first. This time, the wrath of Earth would strike back. The space around the Rosetta system had always been quiet, a quiet that made the sudden blaring alarms aboard the Genesis Ascendant all the more terrifying. Fleet Admiral Riker stood at the command bridge, his sharp eyes scanning the sensor feeds as distant blips grew into a menacing formation. The silicate veil had come. These strange, crystalline ships, angular and cold, moved with unnatural speed and silence, their surfaces shimmering like shards of broken glass reflecting distant stars. Their shields absorbed every laser blast, and their hulls deflected every missile. The human fleet's first volleys seemed to vanish into thin air, causing shock and confusion. Elira Vance, now a seasoned captain, after the fall of Halcyon 3, was among the commanders coordinating the defense. Her voice was calm but urgent. "Concentrate fire on their leading ship. Target weak points if you find any." The Strider and accompanying destroyers tried every tactic they knew. Plasma bursts, gravitic mines, even swarms of tiny drones, but nothing worked. The Veil's technology was unlike anything humans had encountered. Then, amidst the tension, a bold idea came from an AI tactician on board the Genesis Ascendant. "Deploy neutron ram shells. They penetrate dense shields using kinetic force and radiation bursts." It was risky. These shells were experimental, volatile, and could damage nearby friendly ships if not used carefully. But with no alternatives, Fleet Admiral Riker ordered it. The shells fired, streaking through space like deadly comets. Upon impact, The Veil's ships shuddered, some shields flickering. The first cracks appeared. Human hope ignited. The battle turned brutal and relentless. The Veil retaliated with strange energy pulses that disrupted human sensors and scrambled communications. Several human ships were lost in moments, crushed by shards of shattered hulls, or swallowed by sudden gravitational rifts created by enemy technology. But the human crews refused to retreat. Captain Vance led a daring mission to flank the enemy formation. Using stealth technology and evasive maneuvers, her destroyer Nova Fall slipped through the chaos and launched a suicide run directly into the heart of the Veil fleet. With precise timing, the Nova Fall fired a gravitic warhead, causing a chain reaction that destroyed the Dusk Pylon, the alien command ship. As the command ship exploded, the Veil fleet's movements became erratic, their coordination breaking apart. The human armada seized the moment, pressing their attack with everything they had. Space around Rositas filled with flashes of light and debris as ships clashed in a deadly dance. On Earth and all colonies, billions watched live feeds, holding their breath as humanity fought for its survival. The news spread like wildfire. Humans had scored their first victory. It was not a complete triumph, but a sign that the enemy could be fought and defeated. Yet even in victory, the question remained: what were the Silicate Veil? Where had they come from? And most terrifyingly, what was their next move? As the Genesis Ascendant regrouped, Fleet Admiral Riker sent a warning. Across all channels, this war has just begun. Prepare for everything. And deep in the shadows beyond human sight, something stirred. The silence was over. The battle for the stars had begun. The peace Earth once knew shattered in the blink of an eye when the Silicate Veil, those terrifying, crystalline enemies humanity had only begun to fight at Rositas, struck closer than anyone dared imagine. The warning came too late. Sensors picked up strange movements near the outer edges of the solar system, just beyond the orbit of Neptune. A small fleet of Veil ships, no larger than scouts, slipped silently through the dark, cloaked in the shadows of space dust and cosmic debris, making their way toward Earth. Fleet Admiral Riker stood in the Earth Defense Command Center, his face hardened, eyes sharp as alarms blared across the room. "They're here," he said quietly but firmly. The planet's orbital defenses scrambled into action. Earth's massive shield generators, long thought only a backup plan for worst-case scenarios, activated with a surge of power that sent waves of energy into orbit. Cities dimmed their lights, and millions below looked skyward, waiting for what might come. Luna Command Station, the Moon's largest military outpost, became the first line of defense, deploying interceptor fighters and launching plasma mines that spread like invisible nets in space. The Veil ships, quick and deadly, avoided many traps, but the defenders were prepared. Human engineers had developed new weapons since the battles at Rositas: plasma spears that could puncture the crystalline shields and EMP pulses that scrambled enemy sensors for precious seconds. Still, the Veil advanced steadily, refusing to retreat. Their goal was clear: Earth itself. As the enemy reached Saturn's orbit, the situation grew desperate. The Veil fleet tried to break through, aiming to land devastating strikes on the planet's surface. But Earth's fleet was ready. Thousands of warships from the new armada, including massive carriers and stealth frigates, gathered like a steel wall around the ringed giant. The battle was fierce. Veil ships twisted and turned with alien grace, firing shards of crystalline energy that pierced through human armor. Explosions lit the void as fighters engaged in tight dogfights. Among the defenders was Captain Elira Vance, now promoted and commanding a squadron of stealth cruisers. She led daring raids that struck at Veil supply ships, buying precious time for the planetary defenses. The skies near Titan became a deadly battlefield. Earth's best pilots flew through swirling storms of debris and energy, matching the Veil's speed and unpredictability with skill and grit. Deep inside the control rooms, scientists worked furiously, fine-tuning experimental weapons. One breakthrough was the plasma mine, cloaked in radiation, invisible to Veil sensors, which detonated with a force that shattered several enemy vessels in one blast. Another was the EMP spear, launched silently like a comet, disabling enemy shields, just long enough for human ships to deliver finishing blows. After days of relentless fighting, the Veil's push faltered near Saturn. Earth's forces, using coordinated pincer movements, trapped the remaining enemy ships between orbital batteries and fleet formations. In a final, desperate burst, the Veil ships attempted to break free, but were crushed under the combined might of the human armada. Victory was won, but it came with a heavy cost. Ships were lost, lives sacrificed, and the fragile peace shattered forever. Earth had proven it could fight, but the message was chilling and clear. The Silicate Veil had tasted human resolve and would not stop. The enemy was no longer a distant threat. It was at Earth's doorstep. The world prepared for war, knowing that the next attack could be even more devastating. Amid the ruins of battle and the cheers of victory, one question echoed in the minds of all. How long before the Veil struck again? The victory near Saturn brought hope, but also deep concern. Humanity now knew the Silicate Veil would not stop until they had consumed everything in their path. Fleet Admiral Riker gathered the top commanders and strategists in a vast war room beneath Earth's surface. The holographic map of the galaxy flickered above the conference table, highlighting the next target, a suspected Veil stronghold near the galactic core, in a dark, starless region where even the most advanced sensors struggled to penetrate. This place was more than a base. It was a heart of enemy power, a vast forge where the Veil built their terrifying fleet, a place that threatened all human colonies. The Council approved a bold plan named Operation Starburn, an all-out assault, to destroy the Veil's forge world and cut off their ability to wage war. For this, they gathered 200,000 ships, an unprecedented force carrying the best technology, AI tacticians, gravity manipulators, and elite boarding units trained for the deadliest missions. The fleet prepared for a dangerous journey, through unstable wormholes and black space, a route few dared to travel. Captain Elira Vance was given command of a key strike group. The tension was thick as ships aligned for the jump, crews silent, minds focused. When the jump came, stars stretched and bent around them, and time seemed to slow. The dark space they entered was cold and unforgiving, filled with strange cosmic storms and pockets of twisted gravity. Several smaller fleets fell victim to ambushes by the Veil, disappearing into rifts or crushed by hidden traps. One fleet was lost entirely in a rift storm, swallowed by space itself, leaving only silence behind. Despite the losses, the fleet pressed on, guided by AI scouts that carefully mapped the unknown. Days later, as they neared their target, sensors picked up a staggering sight. A Dyson nest, a massive star encased in a web of crystalline energy that harvested its power to build ships faster than humanity had ever imagined. The star's corona flickered with strange colors, and the nest pulsed with ominous life. The enemy's forge was alive and immense. It was a hive, a factory, and a throne of power all at once. The sheer scale of the nest stunned even the oldest commanders. This was more than a battle. It was a war to save the galaxy. The fleet began their attack, firing salvo after salvo, but the Veil responded with a fury born of desperation. Countless, crystalline ships emerged from the nest's surface, shimmering like living glass. The battle escalated beyond anything humans had faced. The void erupted in bursts of energy, fragments of shattered ships, and streams of data flooding the communication lines. Captain Vance led boarding teams that fought their way onto the Veil vessels, uncovering alien technology that was both mesmerizing and deadly. Every inch of progress cost lives, but the humans advanced. The operation's goal was clear: destroy the nest's core, break its power source, and end the Veil's production. Finally, after weeks of relentless combat and sacrifice, the fleet's engineers prepared the final strike. Gravity manipulators locked onto the nest's core, and a chain reaction was triggered. The star inside began to destabilize. The nest shuddered and cracked as the star's energy burst outward in a blinding supernova bloom. The resulting explosion sent waves of light and heat across the system, wiping out the Veil fleet in a single, devastating stroke. The silence that followed was overwhelming, an eerie calm after the storm. Captain Vance and Fleet Admiral Riker shared a moment of quiet triumph, but knew this was just the beginning. The Veil had been dealt a heavy blow, but rumors hinted at others lurking deeper in the galaxy's dark corners. Humanity had survived another day, but the war for the stars was far from over. The stars seemed to hold their breath, waiting for what would come next. The explosion of the Dyson nest sent shockwaves through the dark reaches of space, a blazing beacon that could be seen light years away, shaking the very fabric of the galaxy. But the destruction also stirred something ancient and far more dangerous than the Silicate Veil themselves. Fleet Admiral Riker watched from Earth's command center, eyes tired but burning with fierce determination. The victory had been costly, thousands of ships lost, countless lives sacrificed, but the nest's destruction meant the Veil's rapid production was crippled, buying humanity precious time. Yet, the celebration was short-lived. As the light from the supernova faded, a strange energy pulse swept across space, disrupting communications and sending deep space sensors into chaos. Unknown signals, unlike anything recorded before, rippled through the void, hinting at an awakening. Then came the reports. Outposts on the far edges of human-controlled space detected strange, colossal shapes emerging from dark nebulae, gigantic, shadowy forms that moved with silent menace, far larger and more terrifying than the crystalline Veil ships. The Veil might have been the first wave, but these new creatures, almost alive and part machine, part organic, seemed to respond to the nest's destruction like an alarm. Earth's fleets scrambled to intercept, but the creatures were swift, their weapons and technology unknown and devastating. Entire battle groups vanished without a trace, swallowed by waves of energy that bent space itself. Amidst this chaos, Captain Elira Vance was recalled from the front lines to lead a new coalition of humans and allied colonies, tasked with understanding and halting this emerging threat. She felt the weight of the galaxy on her shoulders as she prepared to face an enemy unlike any before. Intelligence gathered from captured Veil tech suggested these new monsters were ancient guardians or weapons, unleashed by the destruction of the nest, possibly created to protect something much darker lurking at the heart of the galaxy. The question was no longer just about survival. It was about unraveling a cosmic mystery that could decide the fate of all life. As fleets gathered in orbit around Earth and the remaining colonies, humanity's scientists and soldiers worked side by side, racing to develop new weapons and tactics. The human spirit burned brighter than ever. Hope was their flame in the dark. The final battle approached, a clash that would shake the stars themselves and define whether humanity would remain masters of their destiny or become dust scattered across forgotten worlds. The fire that had begun with the fall of Halcyon III had grown into a blaze that lit the path to either salvation or oblivion. And as the new enemy's shadow loomed larger, one thing was clear: humanity would fight until the very last star faded.